Hello and welcome to Conversations with the Voice of Reason. I'm your host, Benjamin Boyce, and today's conversant is Daisy Chadra. She has in the past been a very prolific YouTube vlogger, and I spoke with her at the end of 2020 about her detransition and her spiritual journey, and she's such a pleasant young woman to speak to. I wanted to have her back on to do some catching up, and so we talk about her relationship to her gender and her sex and the roles that are societally constructed around those categories. And we talk about her spiritual journey and her personal journey in a relaxed and, I want to say, undulant fashion, but maybe just circumlocucious is more proper. While she's taking a break from YouTube, I will still link her YouTube down in the description so you can find out more about her and her path through life. Without further ado, here is Daisy Chadra. Did you finish your degree?
Yeah, I did.
So you're at what level of education now?
Bachelor's.
Oh, okay.
And honestly, I don't ever think about it because I'm not going to use it.
Oh, okay. What did you end up specializing in or focusing on?
I majored in communication
Yeah.
and minored in philosophy.
Yeah.
But knowing that I was not going to do some kind of comms job, I kind of wish that I would have minored in philosophy, but it's whatever.
I think you'll end up using both of those. I mean, insofar as you're going to continue to communicate and think out loud.
Oh, yeah, true. I mean, that's kind of why I picked those two things, because it's like, well, I don't know. I have never been a super career oriented person. I was just kind of like, okay, I'll do something that I think that I could be decent at for, a medium amount of money, just so that I can survive. Um, but then I married a trust fund baby, and now I'm
Oh,
just a housewife,
oh.
but also a barista. So yeah.
So you have options then. You have some wiggle room to develop some sort of project then.
Oh yeah. I mean, I definitely can see myself like I like what I do now. I like when I tell people I'm a barista, they probably think that I work at like Starbucks or something, and it's just like a temporary thing, but it's like I've been a barista for 6 years and I've been at the same place for 2.5 years, and I like being there.
Hmm.
Like I like the work. I like the people I work with. And I don't like spend a lot of time thinking about like, oh, what do I want to go? What do I want to go and do beyond this? Like, especially now that I kind of decided like, no, you know what? Like I know I just graduated, but I kind of want to stay here. It's like I might as well put a lot of effort into it. Because to be honest, when I was working there as a student, I wasn't putting that much effort into it. Like I would show up, do my little tasks and leave. But now I'm like, you know, it's like a Jordan Petersonian thing where he's like, whatever you're doing, like just pick one thing and try really hard at it. And I'm like, okay, well, until I have a kid, then, or a more important thing comes along, I'm just gonna like try really hard at this job and this marriage. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Oh, then what is it about the job that you're developing or investing in where you feel like you're getting a return on your investment?
I mean, it's not like it's not like the most high paying job, but I am definitely like getting paid more because I'm there full time now. But aside from the actual like
Yeah.
monetary side of it, um, it like it in the grand scheme of things, it's not a particularly hard job, but there are hard days. But like you always get through the hard days, and like there's all like I don't know, I feel like there's always like good moments to be had during those hard days. And like I feel like my job, especially as someone who loves just like coffee shops, like just the simple joys in life. Like I know how hyped people can get for like, hip, like uh like independently owned coffee shops. Like I know I get how much joy that brings some people. And
Hmm.
like I don't know, I just like participating in fueling people's appreciation of like the simple things in life.
Yeah.
So
Speaking as somebody who is a post barista or once barista, ex barista, there's different levels to that. There's the customer service part. There's the actual physical plant of maintaining, the restaurant side of it.
right.
Cleanliness, stocking. So there's the people. Then there's the physical thing. Then there's the actual craft of the coffee, and that craft is there's the counter craft, and then there's the behind the counter craft. And I don't know if your particular shop does the whole roasting thing in shop in
Yeah.
on site.
Um,
Right?
no, we have a separate roastery
Okay.
that's in downtown Chicago. Not like the Loop area, but just kind of like in the city. And we're in the
Is this
suburbs.
intelligentsia?
No, this is
Uh,
I don't know if I should give the name of
okay,
it,
you
but
don't have to.
it's
Yeah.
an independent shop. There's
Yeah.
only one location, like there's only one cafe location, and
Oh,
then we have a roastery, and
yeah.
I work in the cafe. And it's a very like outward facing job. Like the owner set it up so that like basically everyone can see what you're doing and everyone is like watching you. And that's how a lot of cafes are. Some are more like hidden than others, but with mine it's kind of like you can't it's not like you're a chef in a kitchen where you can just like swear and yell and like you know be pissed.
Mm.
You have to keep that all like internally.
Okay, so you're
uh,
performing the whole time.
yeah, basically. And I love when I get like a comment like when there's like a because we get very very busy.
Hmm.
'Cause people freaking love our shop. um and I love when I get a comment of someone being like, "You guys look so calm and composed, and you guys are so clearly busy." And I'm like, it's all on the outside,
Hmm.
but on the inside, I kind of like I used to like sort of get anxious. I'm just an anxious person. I'm kind of an easily triggered person, but like after doing it over and over again, it's kind of nice to like have sort of conquered that. Like I can say that, like, yeah, I have like a high paced, moderately stressful job. I mean, obviously, I'm not like a nurse or something or like a surgeon, but you know, in the situation, it can get stressful, and it just feels good. Like that's another thing that is kind of nice about the job. Like the thing that's fulfilling about it is like I've just watching myself improve, especially with things that I like typically struggle with on a day to day with like anxiety and like getting easily stressed out. It's like I don't know. It's like very easy for me now. I just kind of like go into well-oiled machine mode.
And so, do you prefer being the customer interaction or the espresso machine interaction?
Espresso machine. I'm pretty
Oh,
much always on bar. I don't
okay.
particularly like being on the
Oh, okay.
register.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm the
just
opposite.
because there's there's like a plexiglass screen and like I'm
Oh,
wearing a mask and like the customer may or may not be wearing a mask. So it's like really hard to hear and I hate like asking people to repeat themselves and like some customers are like creepy. So
okay. I guess I didn't have to deal with the creep so much. I was a barista on and off in my 20s,
mhm.
and I was particularly suited to milking the crowd for all the tips that they were worth. I was very showmanly and very
Yeah.
flirty, and those 30-second interactions were like little tiny writing prompts, like a Twitter machine, where I just come up with a little witty kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, I we definitely have employees that are like really, really like smooth and witty and sociable like that. not really my forte.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so
yeah.
you concentrate on the craft. You concentrate on the bar, on the, and that burnt me out more than the customers. But eventually, I got burnt out on the whole thing. But
Yeah.
with when I think back on my time at the bar, it was about like the ballet, especially during a rush. I was at probably the busiest Starbucks in Chicago in the 1997, 1998 period of time. It was in the Gold Coast district, so it was very fancy and
Yeah.
stuff. And we would have like hundreds of people in the cafe at the same time, and just drinks for miles going down, and it just became this
That's,
whole kind of fluid ballerina or ballet kind of dance for me.
did they have automatic steam wands back
Oh,
then?
this is back in the this is back. We just had a bar. It was totally manual, and then the grind was totally manual too. So you would have to adjust that throughout the day.
Hmm. See, now when I go to a coffee shop and everything is manual, I'm like, nice, because like you can sort of you can perfect the drinks more.
Are
Whereas,
you semi-automatic then?
yeah, semi-automatic. Um, so the steaming is manual. The shots, um, like we have machines that like measure out the
Mhm.
like weight. We don't have to do that manually, and then we tamp it. And when they pull, they stop automatically, so we don't have to like stop it, which
Mhm.
is, I think, perfect. So
And are you into all the like putting a dragon on top of the cappuccino?
we have to do that every single
Oh,
time.
okay.
Um, I mean, not a dragon, but
What's your specialty shape then? Do you have a?
I like tulips. I'm like pretty good
Oh.
at tulips, which is basically just like a three stack heart. My Rosettas, I'm trying to make them better. Like I can do them, but they kind of look more just like hearts with ripples. And then I've been trying to do a swan,
Hmm.
which has been difficult. They look kind of demented sometimes.
Like
So
monster swans?
yeah, like they look kind of a little messed up, but
Hmm.
we'll get there.
I'm gonna have to get the pictures of these so I can put them on the screen so people can see them.
I can send you some.
Okay,
Well,
good.
I only take pictures of the good ones,
Well,
so
yeah, of course. Yeah, we're not gonna
yeah,
show your crazy swans.
yeah.
So, on a theoretical level, on an ideal level, or even just a psychological level, so we spoke. I guess it was 12 or 13 months ago. How do you feel you've been? We spoke a lot about faith in that last one.
Yeah.
And so
So,
I'm wondering just how have you developed or how's your thinking shifted?
well, I think when we recorded, I was kind of really struggling with it.
Hmm.
Just the whole like, I'm going to be a Christian, like fundamentalist, like Bible literalist. And
Hmm.
it turns out like November of 2020, that was starting to get to the point where like that was really difficult for me to maintain, because it got sort of paradoxical where I wanted to treat the Bible with integrity. Um, and by that, I mean basically just like taking it for what it is and not putting my own like bias and worldview onto it and try to make it say what I want it to say.
Hmm.
Um, and it turns out by doing that, I kind of just like, I kind of need to stop pretending that I'm like a fundamentalist Christian. Um, so I think, I mean, from what I recall from our last conversation, I was, you know, using more universalist terms, or at least that's kind of the vibe that I got from what I was saying, because I wasn't quite ready to like full on say, like, I don't believe this anymore. But eventually I did make a YouTube video. It was like a Q&A. And someone asked me about my faith, and I basically was like, I can't call myself a Christian anymore. Like I don't I wanted to, it does seem like I've kind of always wanted to have some sort of like strict template to apply to my life and kind of just like do my best to like fulfill that role. Like I did that with my transition, I did that with Christianity, and I still find myself getting stuck into that with like being a woman and, wife who works but like doesn't plan to work once she has a kid. You know, like
So
I still
you, in that respect, you look for, or you find your imagination assembling this Tradwife kind of role for you. Is that kind of how it is? You have a
I
template.
do find that happening, and a lot of that is very appealing to me. I mean, we're kind of going off of the Christianity thing now,
No, I
but
think it's all a part of the
basically,
thing. I think it's all part
yeah,
of it.
basically, I haven't like identified as Christian in a year, but the Tradwife thing is appealing to me in the sense that I really love being at home, and I love the idea of like making a home as comfortable and expressive of my and my husband's and like our family as possible. Um, I'm trying to learn how to cook because I like I'm kind of getting to the point where like I can't really get out of that like life skill anymore. Cooking always like stressed me out, but now I'm like I
Oh,
really want to learn how to do this. Um, and so in a sense, it's like there's nothing wrong or sexist about wanting to be sort of like a trad wife or a stay-at-home wife or a stay-at-home mom and focus on domestic duties, or like, be a more like traditional woman, if you will. But it does kind of get into the like thing where I'm like obsessing over roles again. Like, and it comes off as very sexist. Um, but it's not because
in what
I'm
way?
not
When you speak about it online, or when you think about
just
it or talk?
whenever I talk to my husband about it. I mean, like we had a conversation that was like it was about like his birthday was December 30th, and we were going to go to out to a restaurant, but COVID was getting really, really bad. And my mother is anti-vax and she lives with my 85-year-old grandmother. So it's like, okay, high risk, like really don't want to like expose them or have them expose me or whatever. And so we were like, should we, Jason was kind of like, I kind of want to cancel it. And I found myself getting really upset because then I wouldn't be able to make him dinner. It's like, I need to make you dinner on your birthday because I'm your wife. And it turned into this thing of like, I'm your wife and I don't know how to cook. And like, that's bad because I can't make you dinner. And like, he makes me dinner and enjoys doing it. But it turned into this like, thing where I was like, just felt like, you know, useless because I can't fulfill my role of the wife that cooks for her husband. And, I was like, I don't clean enough. The house should be cleaner. Like, and it's like, obviously, I don't think that's all I'm good for, but I also just think that, like, I need to, I need to fulfill that role. And it's very like, it's, it's, it's just I don't know. I guess I just use it as something to like be hard on myself over for not being perfect at. But um and yeah, I think the whole like detransition thing obviously influences that. I don't know how it would influence it if I like never transitioned. I don't know where I'd be if I never transitioned, but
How do you think that transition and detransition has shaped your relationship with this role of mother and wife and homemaker?
well, when I was trans, I never really considered any of those roles. I sort of always sort of like wanted to have kids at some point. Um, But when I was trans, it was kind of like, well, I made the decision to transition when I was 17, so that was like way off my radar, and I was kind of like, oh well, I'll figure it out. And for now, I'm gonna go to college and do the college thing, and then,
Hmm.
you know, find a job that pays me enough money to get my own apartment. I didn't have any goal, like relational goals, like
Hmm.
just kind of a vague sense of like, I want to be married and I want to have a kid at some point, but like it wasn't something I spent a lot of time dreaming about because I was trying to do um, I don't know, I just like, I didn't really know what my role was because I didn't fully see myself as a man and I didn't see myself as a woman. Um,
Sorry to ask this, and you don't have to answer, but because we're talking about marriage and family at this point in life when you're 17, 18, 19,
yeah,
during your trans, did you identify as a gay male or
yeah,
a,
I did.
so you still were envisioning or feeling that a male or a man is what you fit
Yeah,
into? Yeah.
yeah. And I was dating, I dated a guy during that time. I had like two relationships during the whole like 5.5 years that I was trans. And I they I like could never, I don't know. The dynamic was even confusing to me because like I was like, it doesn't really feel right to say we're a gay couple. Um, but we're not a straight couple because that would be invalidating to my identity if I said that.
Hmm.
Um, I think my view of masculinity, and like I was 16, 17 when I like kind of went down the trans rabbit hole and was kind of like, okay, no, I think this is definitely me. My view of masculinity was very like surface level and was kind of mostly about aesthetics and attitudes
Okay.
and not really about like what is masculinity really, which is a really interesting question. And it's proven to be quite difficult to answer without sounding, you know, uh, not,
Reactionary, regressive,
uh,
reactionary or regressive or backwards or old
regressive is a
fashioned.
good word. I was going to say sexist, but it's not really sexist. It's just like, you start naming roles or personality traits.
Yeah.
Um, and but I know that it's much deeper than that. Even just like when you start listing personality traits.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think at the time my view was basically just like I want to have a masculine appearance and a masculine attitude, and I want to be called he. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like I should just transition. Like that sounds like that's the only way that I can achieve that.
So by
Um,
masculine attitude, were you like hold my beering, doing bungee cord jumping, or like
no,
just hitting on people
no,
left
not
and
even
right?
that. Not even that, because I'm not a reckless person. I'm not an aggressive person. I'm not like a thrill-seeking person. It's more of just kind of like a certain type of like swagger
Okay. Yeah.
that
Your shoulders are showing me a little bit of that. Just a little bit more presence
yeah,
and rootedness and owning your
yeah, just kind
space.
of like it was less like, more of just like, yeah, I'm here. I'm gonna take up this space. I'm here. What are you gonna do about it? Um, and and just appearance was just, I don't know. I was really like, I don't know. Like I would try to dress as a guy as best as I could with like my mom's like blazers for work and stuff.
Hmm.
Like or like 14, 15, it was a behavior that I had for a like really long time. I mean, growing up, when I would watch movies, I would always relate to the male protagonist, male characters. I never wanted to be like a princess. I never had a princess phase or anything. So it was not rapid onset gender dysphoria, as a lot of people may relate
So
to.
it was kind of like a gradually expanding tomboyhood.
Yeah, yeah. it was it was like I was a tomboy as a kid. Most of my friends were boys, and even the adults, I remember some of the adults in my life would acknowledge that I was a tomboy. I remember kind of hearing that word thrown around a lot in reference to me. Um, but I would also kind of say that I was a boy or say that I was like part boy. And this is like early elementary school. So
Mm-hmm.
with the 2015 like sort of teenage trans explosion, like I was watching all these YouTube videos and hearing all these people say like, "Oh yeah, I felt this way since I was a young child." And I was like, "I've also felt this way since I was a young child." So that was, that's what kind of solidified it for me. It's like this has to be what I have to do,
Okay.
you know. And it was totally inevitable. Like there were no detransitioners really during that time. There were no like people weren't talking about other ways. People still aren't talking about other ways to deal with. I don't even really want to call it gender dysphoria because I think of gender dysphoria as a more like physical sensation, a more like physical hatred of the body and its gendered components. And I didn't have that. Like I had normal insecurities about my body because I was a young girl going through puberty, but I didn't hate my breasts or like my genitalia or anything like that. I was like totally indifferent to that. That didn't develop until I actually went on or that didn't develop until I actually started identifying as a boy and was not passing because of my female characteristics, my voice and my stature and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, okay, I'm not being seen how I want to be seen, so I need to physically change my body. Um, so the dysphoria part maybe was sort of rapid onset, but the general like
Mm-hmm.
weird gender stuff and like the like general like wanting to be a boy was not rapid. That was a very gradual process from like probably age like 4, if I'm being honest. So
Mm-hmm. So when you are, like you were saying, on December 30th for your husband's birthday,
mhm.
and you get really upset because you have all these demands that you're putting on yourself to fulfill this role as the loving wife or whatever the title of that role is. Do you have a corresponding demand or cemented expectation for your husband as the loving husband? Is it dual, or do you more
Not
just kind of like
really.
bear down on yourself?
Well, I mean, like I don't I don't have a problem when he like cooks for me, like I really like that, but it's also kind of like I wish I could do that for him. And he's like, I don't know. I think he's fine. Like I don't think he's doing anything wrong. Like he's masculine in a lot of ways and very feminine in other ways. Like he's very sensitive and more he's definitely like a more emotional person. Um,
Crying during insurance commercials when there's a
he
puppy
cries
dog.
very easily, much easier than I do. Like I I don't really cry at like TV shows or movies or books or anything. I mean it's rare when that happens. I only cry if it's an issue involving this sounds so like narcissistic, but I only cry if it's like an issue involving me and it's something that's really happening in my life, you know? Whereas he'll cry at just like a reference to something. But that doesn't bother me. Like, it doesn't bother me that he is, feminine in some ways. Um, I mean, I wonder if it would, if the roles were like just totally reversed. So they're not like he cleans stuff, I clean stuff. He like,
Hmm.
um,
But
I mean,
you, and even though you have so much stress about this typical role or traditional role that you're wrestling with in your head, it doesn't sound like you have any resentment toward those stereotypes or any need to rebel. I'm not sensing a need to rebel from these stereotypes, more just kind of try to put them in the right place or regulate them
Yeah,
correctly.
and I that's why I don't really feel comfortable calling myself a feminist. One, because it's like if you say feminist, like I don't know what you mean by that. Like,
Mm.
do you mean someone who thinks that women should have the same rights as men? Yeah. But I feel like that term is much more loaded than that. Um, and the reason why I can't call myself that is because I don't like I don't I'm kind of just embracing the sort of regressive roles that were put on women in the 50s during a time when they really didn't have a choice. Like I realize that I have opportunities. I have the
Mm.
opportunity to, go and like have a career or, be single. Like I can, do those things without a certain or even like get a divorce. Like we never will. That's not an option, but I can do those things without the sort of social punishment that would come, in a different era.
Yeah, there's less
And
pressure. I'm sure there's still some pressure.
yeah, yeah. Um,
But
and it's like,
also, and this is kind of in the same vein when we were speaking about your barista activities and being on counter, you still notice that there's aspects of males that become creepy or that you get unwanted attention from males due to your femininity or due to your. That's why I'm reading into that word creepy. They're creepy customers.
yeah, yeah.
And I just
Which,
wonder, do you have a need to rebel or to resent that, or you just have decided to avoid it?
yeah, I try to avoid it. If, or, if there's a customer that like is known to be creepy towards certain women, I'll just like avoid them.
Hmm.
But resentment is not the right word. I don't like it. Um, Sometimes there's a part of me that's mildly flattered by it. It's like, how can you not be? It's like this person thinks I'm attractive. I don't hate I don't hate the idea of people thinking I'm attractive, but
Hmm.
um
Did you
it's
did you
yeah.
ever have that? Did that being attractive ever mix itself into the image of yourself as a male and trying to figure out how to avoid being attractive or how to be attractive in a masculine way? Like,
I definitely felt like I had a like I don't know, it's complicated because I had very severe like body image issues when I was trans that were sort of exacerbated because I'm a very small person just in general. And when I was trying to live as a man, I did not get any bigger. So, I felt very insecure about being so small, but I also felt like I was more kind of narcissistically into myself. Like
oh,
I thought I was like hot shit. Like I thought I was this like super cute, hot like twink. And now that I have detransitioned, I feel like
huh,
I don't have that same sort of like
yeah.
thing going on.
I
I
wonder
mean,
to what extent, because of your heterosexuality, you started becoming the object of your own desire in a way. You began to feed
it was
into
no,
a
yeah,
few
that was
people.
that was weird. I mean, I wonder how many other like gay trans men or, detransitioned straight women kind of felt like this confusion between who they were attracted to and who they wanted to be. Because that
Hmm.
was definitely there with me. Like I was not the type of guy that I am attracted to. I'm attracted to like men who are larger than me and are more masculine. I'm attracted to masculinity. But I was very androgynous and had this sort of like boyish, like Timothy Chalamet type of like thing.
Peter
And
Pan.
I was like, so it wasn't like a, what's it called?
Autoandrophobia
No,
or
yeah, it wasn't.
androphilia. Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't anything like that really going on, but there was sort of like I guess in the sense it was easier to find myself attractive, as narcissistic as that sounds. And now it's just really simple. Like my husband finds me attractive, and that's literally all that matters. I don't care about being attractive to anyone else. So, you know, that's another thing with being married is like I feel like my transition was such a like self obsessed escapade. And I, have always kind of had the tendency to get like stuck in my own head. And it can lead me to want to be selfish and like not think about anyone else but myself. Like I'm, the center of the universe and that kind of thing. And with being married, it's like this life isn't just my life anymore. This is me and my husband. We're one unit. Um, in a lot of ways, we are like kind of the same. Like we're two different people, but we are one in a way, like. And I think that having children, whenever that happens, will just like make that even more so. Like it's not about me anymore, and I have found a lot of relief in that. Because there are people who like when I took down most of all of my videos except for two on my channel. I don't know if you noticed that, but
Didn't notice that.
well, yeah, I privatized all of them except for two. Um, and on like my detransition announcement video, which isn't up anymore, I got a lot of comments from people saying like, this person clearly doesn't think about anything but themselves. And it's like, yeah, I mean, definitely in some points of my, like, there's some truth to that, but I'm actively trying to fight against that. Like, I am a self-centered person. I am temperamentally self-centered, um, and self-involved and self-focused. That is a personality trait that I have that can turn into, something that hurts other people, and it can be a flaw. And I'm trying to just sort of like acknowledge that part of me and like not try to just completely change it, but be a little bit more like, I don't know, try to use it to, um, I don't know, like even in this interview and and all of my interviews, it's like, okay, every time I have an interview, I'm like, you should try to not talk about yourself so much, even though like,
Well, you're on the wrong channel. If you
oh no,
don't,
yeah, no, that's
it's kind of
fine.
my
Yeah.
forte.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But
Well, as a genre, the interview is one, but also the YouTube vlog. It's about yourself, unless it's about your hobby. Unless you're like a car girl, or you're into, I guess beauty projects. Products are kind of like both and with the self, but you're also like showing how to do things,
yeah,
right? So,
and I do have hobbies. Like I don't just look in the mirror all day. um, but even like the genre of my YouTube videos, like it's not that I'm not ashamed of them. It's just a lot of them were very just like self-analytical, and sometimes I would just be like, okay, are you just doing this for you? Like, why are you doing this? Are you just doing this for you? Or are you doing this? Like, I think that there was a really large part of like the motivation behind me making videos is like I want people to give their opinion about my life. Um, I never had it in me to like turn off the comments, um, even though like sometimes, just every now and then, I would get a comment that like really got to me. Um, Usually they were the ones that were like, this person is so self-obsessed, because it's like, oh my God, you're right. And I don't like that. But
I wonder. if you were saying about turning that self-obsession into force for good, and I wonder if the family unit is because it is you and it is yours, but it's more than you. It's more than yours. You can have both and there.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. It's not like the reason why I want to have a family is not just because like, and I have asked myself this, it's not just because I want to like fulfill the regressive traditional role of woman and what women do or have been expected to do. Um, it's just kind of like it seems like the best way to distance myself from myself, but still create something from myself in the most real way possible. I mean, having kids is like it's what we do. Like it's it seems to me to be like the thing that will bring my life the most meaning. Um, and through that, I'm like always I'm like, okay, make sure that you don't neglect your marriage too, because like getting married was scary. I mean, the divorce rate is like 53%. My parents are divorced after they were married for like 12 years, and it freaks me out. It's like what went wrong if they were so madly in love and got married thinking that they would not get divorced, and then they got divorced. It's like what is going wrong in 53% of marriages? And so
Was the divorce, and we don't have to go here, but I wonder, did the divorce add to your stress or add to your development and struggles with identity?
probably, I don't know if I can articulate exactly how, but I mean, my parents have very like different personalities. And I think growing up, I sort of had more respect for my dad because when I was younger, I eventually got to an age where I realized my dad is just, a guy. Like he's just some guy. And then my mom is just a random woman who happens to be my mother. I know, like I love and respect her very much, but at the end of the day, like they're just people. They're not like, it's not like when I was a kid and they were like the king and queen of my whole life. But I, I felt more of an urge to obey my father and not get him mad and like always be on his good side. And he was not an authoritarian parent. I mean, he was, if anything, less authoritarian than my mom was. And I felt more of an urge to rebel against my mother. Um, and so I don't know how, like that probably, I don't know if I can call it like, oh, that's the reason why I, had this like internalized misogyny that made me think that like guys were just better than girls. Because I also thought that as a kid. I used to think that like, when you're a kid, your fellow boys will usually say like boys are better than girls, and then girls would be like girls are better than boys, like when you're, young.
Yeah.
And I would kind of be like, I actually don't think that. I actually think that boys are better than girls. And I used to go around and like tell people that.
Oh, really?
Not, yeah. I was like,
how are boys better in your young mind than girls? What way?
I
Better at chess? Better at running?
yeah, I don't know. Just less afraid to exist, I guess. And I always felt like I had this sort of like fear of existing, just like generally. Um, and I still sort of relate to that. But it's more of like just a general like worrying about like bad things happening, not like, to assert myself. I certainly feel like I've grown out of that sort of like fear that I had as a kid.
Of existing? Of being
Of
recognized?
existing. Like I kind of felt like I wanted to just like be invisible. And I was also sort of jealous of boys who were more encouraged to be to be, I guess. Like girls, it seemed sort of like they were rewarded for being like shy and like more
Subtle,
subtle. Yeah.
implicit.
Yeah, yeah. Like it almost felt like they were like not really explicitly rewarded for it, but or explicitly encouraged, but there was definitely, and I wasn't able to like articulate this as an 8-year old, but I think I realized it in like teenagerhood. I was like, girls are actually um kind of encouraged to be um unconfident and like have low self-esteem in a way, more so than boys are.
Did you have a primarily female peer group or male peer group during this stage?
Elementary school,
Yeah.
male,
Yeah.
male friend group.
And then middle and high school?
High school, it kind of shifted more to having more female friends. Because I think there's something about like going through a female puberty where you sort of have a new level of kinship with other girls. I mean, I guess in like pre-puberty, elementary, middle school, my friend group was kind of mixed. It's not like it was exclusively boys. Like I had a couple of like of girl friends, but it was mostly boys is who I gravitated towards. And they, it was nice because they like didn't have a problem being friends with me. So it was kind of like it was nice to sort of feel like I could be one of the boys, even though I wasn't. They didn't I don't think they really saw me any differently at that time.
Did they encourage or discourage your being or your existence?
I mean, I can't really remember.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
no,
just wondering if that the statement or that perception that you had was vague or specific about females
I think it
being
mostly came
encouraged.
from adults,
Okay.
not from other kids. Um,
And how were you encouraged based on your femininity to be less existing? How did that perception arise, or did you get the sense?
well, I mean, I sort of felt it just naturally within myself. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I had an older brother who was like 9 years older than me, and he was a teenager when I was a child. And I guess he, like, I remember this one instance where, like when my brother was a teenager, he was very just kind of like, he would like take up a lot of space wherever he sat, and he would just sit there and scoff and, be kind of like, rude, and antisocial. And he wouldn't, I never witnessed him being punished for that. So when I was 9, my great grandmother came over and gave me like a Christmas present. And I was like consciously thinking, like, I'm going to act like Michael and just see what happens. And so I acted, like that. I just kind of sat there and was just like, didn't smile or talk really. And my mom, as soon as she left, my mom was so mad at me. Like she was like, "Why would like you're acting like a brat?" And so it's like it's not. I'm not saying that she reacted wrong. I was acting like a brat, but I remember specifically thinking like, I'm going to act like Michael and see how just like I
Like a
was.
science experiment.
Yeah, yeah, and I got punished for it as I should have. I would, I mean, you know, um, but I just kind of was, I was kind of, I remember being like, whoa, like, okay, I guess I can't act like that. And in my head, I was thinking like Michael, like a boy, like a, teenage boy. So that's the only specific scenario I can think of.
But you didn't see him being equally dissuaded from being a brat.
Yeah, yeah. Or being sort of like, I don't know how to describe that sort of uh, attitude. But Yeah.
There's a certain age where you just can't do anything without like forcing the teenager to double down on their um, sour behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
But insofar as you're going to be a parent, you're going to be able to experience that firsthand.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting because I remember so much of my own childhood.
Hmm.
So I was a pretty like difficult child because I was so like emotional and like overreactive. Um,
But not in crying over insurance commercials emotional. So you're more
no,
anger,
I
more
was just easily
passionate.
upset. I was just
Oh,
easily upset. Like over uh spilling something or loud noises or,
oh,
external things that would like
okay.
I would always be like really deeply affected by it and I like wouldn't be able to stop crying. And so,
Things aren't going the way they should be.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. My mom thinks still, I mean, I think she still thinks that I'm autistic. Um, just because of like the nature of the meltdowns that I had and the whole I have sensory issues or like auditory sensory issues. Like I still kind of feel that same like I particularly hate loud sudden noises and I thought that was just normal, but my husband actually pointed that out to me because we have a very sensitive fire alarm in our home and um I would always just get kind of like visibly just like like whenever it would go off and
Hmm.
it would kind of linger and I would hear it like blaring in my head even after he turned it off and he was kind of like, hey, you really hate that. You really hate loud noises. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I still do like as an adult. But I don't
Well,
think I am
well,
autistic. I
if
don't
if
know.
you do go down the road of doing the experiment of might I be somewhere on the spectrum, and you can see, well, I have a problem with categories, I have a problem with expectations of an external make not matching up with reality and then sensory things, then you don't have, it doesn't matter if you are or are not autistic. It could be useful to see, well, how do people who are more further down that than how do they cope with that, and what are some of the skills or the tools or the practices or the habits that help them that could help me,
Yeah.
that you just exact it so that
Yeah.
the
And like I might be like the spectrum is so broad.
well, it's a spectrum, it just keeps on going.
Yeah, no, exactly. So like maybe I am somewhere on it.
Yeah, it's like being alt-right
Probably
adjacent. Everybody's alt-right adjacent to a certain
am.
degree.
Right. Yeah. Oh, right. I that's such a like I mean, I do consider myself politically to be on the right now, which is very different. Like than I
Are
like
you
I've
politically
never
active in your speech and your presence online?
no, not really. I
I guess
mean,
you're only on Facebook right now. You were on Twitter and then you
I am on
disappeared.
Twitter.
Oh, you're still on Twitter. Okay.
It's just private.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Pretty sure my username is just DM Chadra.
But
Um,
you squashed down your YouTube presence. So
yeah, I kind of got like, I don't know, I got kind of uncomfortable with just like how many people, like how public it was, and like
yeah.
how many people were watching me talk about like my religious beliefs and like
Mm,
very, very personal things.
yeah.
And I kind of just have more of a desire to be a more private person. And I think
Hmm.
that the other desire that I have to be public and open and share, because that's very real. Um, I have this sort of like desire to share. I mean, I have Instagram for that. So when I get married, I can be like, look at me, I got married. Um, but in terms
Hmm.
of like talking about like really deep stuff and like my life and my thoughts, it like I have tried to record videos like several times. And at this point, it's like I can't, every time I record something like a 20-minute video, as soon as I stop recording, I'm like, oh, I should have clarified this and I should have said, didn't even mention this. And, I should have said this differently. Like, I'm not going to be happy with it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I haven't uploaded any of those sort of streams of consciousness.
Okay, I was going to say you're not a scripter then. You don't script out everything and then produce it, or do a couple takes.
Yeah, no, not really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I don't really, I've kind of lost the desire to share that part. Um,
Hmm.
because it's very vulnerable, and I don't think that
Hmm.
my desire to share that necessarily comes from a healthy place.
Are we speaking about all of it, or your religion, or your
Religion,
identity? Yeah.
detransition, identity, like
Yeah.
it kind of feels like I'm growing out of it. And I'm not saying that it's immature to make that type of content. Like I do think that that type of content and the people that make that type of content is valuable. Like I really appreciate your YouTube channel. You're not talking about yourself, but it's like it's a bunch of different people with all these different experiences just talking about themselves. And I think that that's really valuable, good content. But I don't know. I guess with me,
Hmm.
I don't know. I am never quite happy with what I say. And I thought about going down the interview route, but um,
Where you unspool the innards of other people,
yeah, yeah. But
Mother
I guess I
Confessor
just am
style.
like, I've kind of lost the motivation for it at the
Yeah.
end of the day. Like um, I'm not, I'll never close the door on it completely, but you know, right, I do kind of go through phases of like making a lot of content and then not making a sound for months. So right now I'm in the sort of silent
Hmm.
phase. Um, Other than Twitter, which is where I make some noise, but not a lot. I like and dislike Twitter because it's like, you know, it's basically just a doom scroll. It's like, oh, that's like the worst news I've ever heard. Can't do anything about it. Or like, oh, look at these people just like being really
Oh
mean to each
gosh.
other for like really silly reasons coming from
Yeah.
like very like self like type of self-righteousness. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I've been on there probably almost daily, but I'm not like super active on it.
Yeah. There is kind of back where we started the conversation. You're fine kind of participating in this, what some could say, I'm not saying this at all, somebody could say that's not really ambitious to be a coffee shop girl. I'm sorry, barista, or baristo. Is there a feminine
No, it's just
conjugation?
barista.
Everybody's a chick behind that counter. Okay, so they could say that that's not really ambitious. It's really mundane, but you're finding a great amount of fulfillment in that, and self
Yeah.
mastery
I'm
and
not a super
development.
ambitious person. I wouldn't describe myself as ambitious, so that's fine. Um,
And well, so I don't mean to say that that's a lesser thing, because I see that you're finding value in it, and if you're finding value and meaning in it, what else could you need? But there's still this other side of you that's in abeyance right now, or lying dormant in some sort of hibernation of being expressist, if that's a word, being at least openly participating and reveling in and delving into your development and your thought processes. But that part of you is not necessarily gone.
no, not at all. I
It's
mean,
something you spend a lot of time doing. And
it's in my daily conversations with my husband because we're both kind of the same way.
okay,
We're both very like self-aware
yeah,
people, and like I don't really feel the need to just sort of like have that conversation with the void or, with
yeah,
like random
the
people on the internet.
swarm, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think I never really thought about it, but probably just having my husband kind of got rid of the need to like yell into the swarm and just like
hmm.
and with the whole like feedback and comment thing, there was a sort of high from it, from uploading a video. Like I would never just upload a video and then just like not look at my phone for a while. Like as soon as I would upload a video, I would just be like refreshing, 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 like, oh, how many likes am I getting? And that's that I don't think was coming from a healthy place.
Hmm.
And,
But
you
you got
know,
over that at some point, right? I got over that after a couple years of no,
not
stopped.
really,
Okay.
not really, to be honest. So that's why I am slowing down on the
Hmm.
content because I think it was sort of a primarily self-serving thing because I just, I
Yeah.
mean, and not totally. Like I do think that I
A lot of
am
people
really
got a lot of
passionate about.
value out of it. I wouldn't have ever contacted you if I didn't see that you're doing valuable
Yeah.
work.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I'm really like the more detransitioners talk about their experiences, the better, right? Like we need, like I still feel like we are such a small group and we're so easily dismissed, but I am hoping that eventually, like 5 or even 10 years down the line, enough, um, enough people will have come back and told the same story and talked about their very real regret that like maybe like the medical community, the mental health community will wake up and kind of like accept that like, hey, maybe we need to start considering other options for transition, especially if the person is a minor or is depressed or autistic or whatever. Um, but it is really concerning and like hard for me to be hopeful when there's all of this censorship going on
Hmm.
for anyone who speaks out or anyone who even like questions it at all, like the whole J.K. Rowling thing. Like the did you? I mean, you probably heard about the like she was the Guardian canceled their Person of the Year thing because J.K. Rowling was voted to be Person of the Year. Are they just doing away with it, the whole thing, or
No,
like
I'm sure just this year. And then the LA Times came out with this huge list of transphobic articles about the transphobic J.K. Rowling, and at no point was any of that not a lie. So it's really stunning how entrenched this particular narrative is, and a lot
oh
of the
yeah, it was
accepted
so
or
easy.
adapted.
It was so easy for me to believe when I was trans that like no, ultimately like people just want less trans people around. Like they just think it's gross and they can,
Hmm.
they'll say that it comes from a place of, but it's just rhetoric. They just don't want us to exist. But it's like once you've gone through the experience, like there's no part of me that wants less trans people to exist. It doesn't affect me. Like it doesn't impact my life in any way. So I just want less people to have to go through what I went through. And I've come to peace with it now. Like it
Hmm.
happened, it was always supposed to happen. Um, and now we're here and, I went through my shit. So I don't really feel that much like, I don't feel necessarily that much bitterness and resentment. Um, I don't blame detransitioners for feeling resentment. But if I don't know, I think that yeah, like there's an epidemic of teenage girls who are having a hard time accepting themselves, teenage girls who want to be someone else, who don't want to be who they are, who don't want to be in their body. Um, like I really, really heavily related to that
Hmm.
as a teenager. I did not want to be the person I was. I hated who I was and who I was becoming. And any drastic measure that I could take to escape that, I would do that. So, you know, transition seemed to be the thing. Like it was intense. It was an intense thing to do to myself, but I kind of just sort of like decided to kind of be desensitized by it. Like now when I think about my top surgery, I'm like, what the hell? Like it's hard to like think about because I amputated healthy body parts. That's what I did. I mean, it's kind of like it's as if I amputated like my fingers or something. It's not quite as intense as like a limb or something, but
And you don't think, when you think about that, you think about it in terms of first person, not that it was done to you, not that there were
it was both.
collaborations with
It was
doctors.
both. I think, it was sort of I think I was taken advantage of and profited off of, um, based off of, shoddy evidence. I mean, there's no evidence really. There's no evidence that that amputating the breasts of young adult females is going to help them in the long run. Uh, but I don't want to get too caught up in that because
Hmm.
at the same time, like I sought it out, I had it done. It was my decision. So I'm trying to not be too like self-blamey, but I'm also trying to not be like it was society's fault. Like I don't think either are productive. I'm just kind of just being like, yeah, it happened.
And we bring that up. You bring that up, and you express that. And I think it's very valuable that you're putting your voice out there. I'm wondering at some point if you would go back through your privated videos and select ones that could be good for young girls in your position when you feel comfortable with that, with that, or
Yeah. I may make a new video. I took my detransition video down, the one
how
where
many
I
detransition videos did you end up doing? Did you do a
less than
series?
10, not
Okay.
that many. I did one where I was talking about like socially detransitioning because I didn't socially detransition until about like December of like last December, December 2020. Um, but I made the decision to detransition like
Oh,
7 months before
that's
that.
why we paused. I think that's why we paused the publishing of the last interview because you wanted a couple weeks, if I
Yeah,
recall
yeah. I
correctly.
mean, I was out on the internet as detrans because I made my detransition announcement video in October of 2020.
Did you get as
Um,
many accolades for the detransition as the transition video?
um,
How was the community response on kind of comparing those two video statements?
um, well, I didn't get a lot of like negative feedback from the trans community. Um, I did actually, when I had a lot of negative feedback from the trans community is when I made a TikTok, um, back in October of 2021, where it was kind of making light of my detransition, and it was basically like when you go on testosterone for 4 years, get top surgery, legally change your name, only to realize that you want to just be a housewife. And it was like a voiceover of like me lip syncing a voiceover of someone being like, I'm just now internally asking myself if I might have made an error. And it kind of blew up. And I got there were some, I guess, comments that were like, this is why people need to wait to transition, or like, gender critical, transition critical comments. And I got a bunch of like 16, 17, 18-year olds being like, you need to address the transphobia in your comments. You're enabling transphobia. Um, and being like, can you just stop talking about your detransition? It's hurting the trans community. And that just melted my brain. So
Why?
I
Did it
deleted.
bring you back to a moment in time when you would have been doing those comments, or?
Yeah, and it did. So in a way, it kind of helped me. Like it made me like I sort of empathize with them, but it was also just like it was mostly just annoying and cringy. So I was like this, and I was also spending way too much time reading my TikTok comments, and it's like I'm not. If I'm about to engage in a TikTok comment battle, I maybe should just like take a step back. Like, so, um, yeah, I deleted the comments and then I was like, I'm just gonna delete the video. Like, it got enough views. It got like a couple 100,000 views. So I was like,
Yeah.
that's enough. I don't need anyone else to see that. I thought it was funny. Like again, I'm not ashamed of it. I don't think it was like a bad TikTok. I didn't delete it because of like, I don't know, it was fueling transphobia. I don't think it was. If anything, I think it was good that it got attention and people it made people kind of like think about, you know, um, I don't know. And I also had a TikTok kind of explaining before that, sort of explaining like why I transitioned and why I detransitioned, just like very briefly. Um, but it's like that stuff doesn't have to be up forever, and I can make new content when I feel
See,
like it.
there's a there's a bit of a generational difference between you and I, where it sounds to me that all this YouTube and TikTok and Twitter and etc. Content. It's still novel to me that I am a content creator. I'm not a poet. I'm not a musician. I'm not an author. I'm not even a filmmaker. I'm a content creator. And the the pluses and the minuses of content creation in this Brave New World is that it's instantaneously viewed, it could be shared, it could go incredibly big, incredibly quick, and there's hardly any gatekeepers other than the miasmic swarm that decides to cancel something. Or, the YouTube gatekeepers and stuff. So there is a gatekeeper, but because you can just do it, you upload it, you get comments, instant feedback. Whereas I grew up and I came of age in a time where I knew by the time I was 19 that it would take me 10 years before I could produce anything that would be accepted by a publisher and maybe even get published. So I wonder if there's with that, there's a trade-off in that content creation relies on our impatience, and it might dilute the content that could be really powerful if you had time to dedicate yourself to something, even just mentally, that you consider as a novel, where you're going to say, I'm going to
Yeah.
work on one project for a year, or I'm going to do something in private and then publish it later on.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I mean, like I grew up on the internet. Like I got
Yeah.
my first laptop when I was in sixth grade, and like I have a short attention span as it is, so I just became like addicted. And so I kind of watched as it became easier and easier to become an influencer. And I like I wanted to be one. I had this sort of like urge because I was consuming so much. I was like, I shouldn't just consume, I should put my own thing out there because clearly anyone can do that. So I've been making videos since I was like 12. Um, and like they didn't start getting views until I, started talking about trans stuff. I made that Jordan Peterson video where I was defending Jordan Peterson. It was called I'm Trans and I Love Jordan Peterson, and that got a lot of attention. And it's just like, oh, I didn't put
Internet
that,
famous.
yeah, and I didn't put that much effort into that video. So like I thought about it and I like, I did write somewhat of a script. That video actually, someone DM'd me why I like Jordan Peterson as a trans person, and I typed up this really long response, and I basically just used that as a template for that video. So it kind of just it wasn't something that I spent years making. It wasn't something that like I really put a lot of work into. So it was kind of like this just like easy attention that I could get just for saying the stuff that I thought. And I feel like I in particular, who has this sort of like um tendency to like be self-centered and crave feedback from others on the stuff that I say, and just like the sort of I get like it does encourage us to be impatient, and I felt like it like when I started making content, I didn't really get a lot of views, but I did get some views, mostly just from people I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And that even that alone gave me like this high. So Now that I know that about myself, I feel like I just need to be really careful with it, and be more responsible with it. And I think for me right now, that involves me just like not participating in it. But like I said, I have not closed the door on it. Um, and I'm sure that I will,
Well,
I
you're a
hope.
newlywed, so you have this brand new project to
Yeah.
throw your attention into.
Yeah. And that is what I'm paying the most attention to. So I don't know. We'll see, I guess. But it's not like my livelihood or anything. So I have the choice. I never want it to be my livelihood. So, because I'm not a very consistent uploader.
Yeah, that's rule number one. You got to hustle
Yeah.
to keep it going. I
Yeah.
don't want to bring this up because I don't want to make you feel bad or down or anything, but I'm going to bring it up anyways.
Okay.
Somebody did a tweet about you, and of course this is being taken out of context, and you're being taken out of context too. But I'll just read it really quick. These people, meaning detransitioners, are generally caught in the same cycle of behavior, just projecting it onto different objects of affective senses of belonging. In 3 images, and then 3 images of you going through. Accidentally joining a cult, being a trans person that's in love with Jordan Peterson, and now detransitioning.
Well, I always kind of joked about like how, because I'm interested in like cult stuff, like it just as a concept.
It's
Like
pretty
I'm a
weird
huge
stuff.
horror movie fan, and if it involves a cult, I'll like watch it. And I always thought that like I would totally be the type to join a cult. Like I mean, there's a little bit of truth to, what that person said. Like I do sort of have a kind of um, like I don't like to think that I am very skeptical. I don't like to think that I'm a very gullible person. But at least younger me would have been sort of susceptible to joining a cult. I mean, that person screenshotted a video of me talking about the title was I accidentally joined a cult. It wasn't really like that. I went to a Pentecostal church and they offered to baptize me on the first like thing, and it was very like emotional and like, you know, charismatic, and it was a weird experience. But yeah, I mean, there's a hint of truth to what that person said, regarding my temperament, but I definitely try to keep it in check, and I am aware of it. So,
And I think that the work that you do, your talking work, your internet work, so far as you continue to do it and release some of those privated things back into the wild, it speaks to that in a way that imbues that thought process with light, and it shines the light on a certain way of thinking or a certain tendency or temperament, and it works to give people who have that temperament to be a little bit more critical, regardless of what ideology they're being swept up in or
yeah. I
tending
don't
toward.
feel like the detransition community is very cult-like at all.
No,
Um, you
because there's
know,
such a ragtag bag of misfits.
yeah, and we all have a different variety of,
Yeah,
worldviews and
yeah.
intensity of those worldviews. Um, and I don't feel the need to conform my opinions or thoughts on things to like I'm not I don't like it's not like I identify as a detrans woman. It's like it's an experience I went through, um, and it has informed and changed the way I think about this very specific type of thing. Um, but it's not it's very, very different than how I was in the trans community, and the various subsects of that. um, but yeah, no, I'm just a female person who's just like living their little life, and it's fun, and I'm happy, so I don't really. Yeah, I just feel more fulfillment now to where I don't really feel like, I feel like YouTube was in a sense like
Your
filling a
boyfriend.
void. My boyfriend, kind of. Same with the Christianity thing. Jesus was my boyfriend for a while. Well, we broke up.
Oh, he still loves you. I don't think
That's
it's not him.
funny.
It's you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really happy that you're in this spot now, and I know that there's a really good reason that you're not as public anymore, or at this time, and I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful that you're
Yeah.
able to be in a marriage and to pour your heart and your soul and your mind and your creativity into that. But I know down the road, God willing, baby willing, your voice is going to resonate, and I'm sure you have more that you'll be giving us.
Yeah. I'm sure I will too. Whenever motherhood calls, that might, you know, probably not gonna do the whole mommy vlogging thing. I watch mommy vloggers sometimes just to kind
Yeah.
of like prepare, but like, because some of them are try to be like raw and be like, this is what it's actually like to like have a newborn or a toddler or three toddlers. But it's like, yeah, I don't think I could ever do that. I'll exploit myself, not my children.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's ethics in YouTubing right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm watching them and thinking that they're like bad people. But it's also like maybe their kids will grow up and be like, Mom, can you take these down? And I would at least hope that they would take them down if their child, was uncomfortable with it.
Well, the way that the algorithm works, it might just not be getting enough views by 18 years in the future.
Right.
So maybe
Very
the mom's
true.
like, well, we had
The
already
damage
paid for
is
your
done.
college, so we're fine.
Yeah,
We'll take
there's
it.
already a video that has 3 million views of you being born in a bathtub. So, and I watch those.
Oh wow, okay.
So,
It's a good thing to know. That's really intense stuff. I don't view that often, but I'm glad that there are women out there who undergo that content creation, both
yeah,
human
it's
wise
like
and video wise.
I shouldn't be seeing this. Like, is nothing sacred anymore?
Oh.
But I'm also like, wow, that's crazy.
So, you guys are going to go to the mountains. I was going to ask, I'd like to wrap up. We kind of started with the mundane, but maybe we can end with the mundane. What are some hobbies that you and your husband do, or, you guys play table tennis or
Oh,
ping
yeah, I mean,
pong? Guess
he's
have
a
a mutual
tennis
hobby.
player,
Huh?
and I haven't played tennis in a bit since winter started.
Yeah.
I'm less active with it, but that's something we like to do together. And we don't have a ping pong table here, but his parents have one at their country house, and we like to do that together. He's way better than me. He's just like he's really good at racket sports, and I'm like I'm not. I'm just
Anything with a
not.
paddle, he's a master.
It's true. Um, and I'm not an athletic person at all, but I feel like racket sports are what I'm like more comfortable with than like team sports or anything really.
At this point, Zoom just completely quit on both of us. So here is Daisy saying goodbye. Thanks for listening to this calm conversation.
Thanks for having me on again, Ben. You always ask really, really good questions, and it's always impossible for me to not talk about myself on your channel. So thank you for encouraging me to do that, and to not feel shitty about it. And yeah, thank you for having me on. If anyone is interested in following me on Twitter, it's DM Chadra, Chadra. And my Instagram is DM Strongin, which is my married last name, Strongin. So yeah, thanks again for having me on, and thanks everyone for watching. See you later.